SA 620, using the work of an auditor's expert. Using the work of an auditor's expert. First of all, who is an expert? What do you mean by expert? Who is expert in accounting and audit? Chartered accountants. Other than that, if an individual is having extreme skill, if an individual is having expertise in any field other than accounts and audit, he is an expert from our point of view. If somebody say they are expert in accounts and audit who is not a CA or CMA, will you agree? No, right? Whether we are experts or not, we have to be experts. We claim ourselves experts, whether we are actually or not. Correctly? So, expert means what? A person, an individual having expertise in any field other than accounts and audit. He is an expert. Now, these experts under standards on auditing are two types: management expert, auditor's expert. There are two experts under various standards on auditing. SA 500 is the standard that exactly deals with management expert. SA 500 standard is what? Audit evidence. That is the heading of the standard. One of the method through which you can get evidence is through management expert. One type of evidence that you can get is through management expert. SA 620 talks about auditor's expert. Like how the definitions were drafted. Like what is expert? Once again, an individual having expertise in any field other than accounts and audit is an expert. If that individual work is used by management for preparation and presentation of financial statements, if that individual work is used by management for preparation and presentation of financials, we call him as management expert. If that individual work is used by auditor, why auditor want anybody's help? To obtain evidence, to obtain sufficient and appropriate evidence, we call him as auditor's expert. You see the definition of management expert. It may be an individual, or the expert may be an organization possessing expertise in a field other than accounting or auditing, whose work in that field is used by the entity to assist the entity in preparation of financials. If an individual who is an expert whose work is used by the entity for preparation of financial statements, we call him as management expert. Then what is auditor expert? Whose work in that field is used by auditor to assist the auditor in obtaining sufficient and appropriate evidence. The first part of the definition is same, both the cases. So expert means what? He may be an individual, it may be an organization possessing expertise in a field other than accounting or auditing, whose work in that field used by auditor for obtaining sufficient appropriate evidence is auditor expert. Whose work in that field is used by management for preparation of financial statements is called as management expert. Got clarity? Now, so here expertise means other than accounts and audit. Suppose let us assume I am the auditor of Vodafone. Vodafone has received a demand notice from telecom regulatory to pay AGR dues. What is it called as? AGR, adjusted gross revenue percentage due, which they have to pay to telecom regulatory, which they agreed at the time of grant of telecom license itself, for which the Vodafone has not created a provision in the books of accounts. And telecom regulatory suddenly in 2021, they passed this order saying Vodafone has to pay some 50,000 crore. Since these long years, almost 10 years, 8 years, 10 years, telecom is not asking, they thought it's waived. The liability is waived. Based on internal discussions with officers and all, they thought it's waived. Based on that documentation only, they did not create a provision. And they went to the Supreme Court to file against this particular order, that why we should pay. All these days it was not demanded. So we thought, based on principles of natural justice, since it was not demanded, we thought it was waived. Now suddenly asking overnight and asking us to pay 52,000 crore is not correct. Whatever happened, we will not pay. Then finally Supreme Court said, since it's already a precondition, non-calling of the due during this 10 years does not amount to waiver, something like that they argued, and finally said telecom regulator, the Vodafone has to pay. Like the High Court judgment initially, they have to pay. Now later it went to the Supreme Court, then they went to some tribunal also, telecom related tribunal is there, so they went to tribunal. Right now the position is pending. For example, as on 31st March, whether they have to discharge this due or not, the case is pending. Let us assume you are the auditor of that entity. Now, how do you decide whether this is a real liability or contingent liability? Our domain expertise, our expertise is not sufficient for us to decide whether it's a contingent or real liability. Should I instruct the company to create a provision, or can the company show it as a contingent liability? That decision I can't take. So I need a legal opinion. I need a legal opinion. Which lawyer opinion? Definitely a lawyer who is of a Supreme Court level. So some big lawyer, like Kapil Sibal, somebody like that, we need a legal opinion. So the Vodafone approached the legal opinion lawyer. Even auditor also want to know, because that is what most important, what lawyer ultimately tells, because lawyer will study accounting standard at that time and he will understand. Then they will give a detailed what plan of action to be taken. So the lawyer gave an advice that okay, right now you can show it as a contingent liability, and the lawyer also additionally told this is a material uncertainty related to going concern. This is a material uncertainty related to going concern. If at all the next year Supreme Court says you must pay the amount, there is only one way to pay, to honor that liability, by liquidating the entity. So he's adjusted all that. Management also have taken the same. Whatever the lawyer has said, management has taken the same call, same action they have taken, and they reported accordingly. Now I have this doubt. Now here management has used their own expert, their own lawyer. Management has taken the help of the lawyer, who is an expert in law, interpretation of cases, handling of cases with courts and all. He's expert in that. So management has taken the decision and then showed as contingent liability. So what I felt when I look at the case document, all that is, it is not contingent, but it is something that requires provision. And when I look at the management expert, the history, he is a very regular lawyer for the entity. For this entity, he is a frequent lawyer for all the cases and all. He is having so much of interest in the entity. His opinion is not independent, I felt. So what I decided is, let me not believe a management expert. Let me go to another lawyer who is independent of this entity. That's when the concept of auditor expert comes into picture. Primarily, we follow management expert opinion only. Primarily, we try to go with management expert only. Already management recruited one engineer, one lawyer, some architect or some actuary, they recruited. And so much of cost is spent and prepared the financials, took all the assumptions, everything. Why should I directly go to auditor expert? Let me see his independence. Let me see his competence. After that, if I feel the management expert is not competent, after I get a clarification that management expert is not acting independently, they are biased towards the management, after I get the confirmation, then I will go for another expert. Otherwise, I will not go. When I will go for auditor's expert, when I will go and choose my own expert, if I think management requires an expert and recruited an expert and he is not unbiased, he is not independent, that is one scenario. Two, management created a provision or contingent liability based on their own computations which requires an expert certification, but they didn't go for it. Management is supposed to go for some expert, independent expert, but they didn't go for it. They themselves calculated the provision which I feel not correct. That time also I'll go for expert. Suppose insurance companies, for creating provisions, there is something called claims incurred but not reported. There is something called claims incurred but not reported. Means 31st March date, some car accidents would have happened for sure. And to those cars, this company would have already sold insurance. So as on 31st March, already some incident happened. Now, technically speaking, if at all the car owner lodged a claim with the company would have discharged the liability, right? But he has not yet informed the company. He will inform later. 30 days time is there for him. 30 to 60 days time is there. He will inform slowly. Then he will get the claim. As on 31st March, claim is incurred by the company already, but not reported to the company. For this, the company has to create a provision. How to create a provision without my customer telling me that he met with an accident? How do I create a provision? That's where actuaries come into picture. Actuaries, based on mathematical calculation, based upon statistical researches, based upon history of accidents that is happening in the country, in that city, in that zone, depending upon that, he will give a provision percentage. This much provision you create, sir. This provision, without taking help of actuary, company created. Last year, whatever is created, that only they created this year also. which according to me is not correct. So now I want actuary opinion here. I want legal opinion for a pending case because the lawyer of the company is not independent. So now I need expert requirement. Now I need expert requirement. Now once I understand that expert is required, then I will once again see management expert is there now already. Can I go with him or should I go for auditor expert? Now here you see there are two different questions. Factors for determining need of an expert. Whether you require an expert or not, how do you decide? Factors, considerations or factors when deciding whether to use an auditor expert. First you decide, do you need an expert? First check. On what basis I will check whether expert is required or not. Okay, you decided after checking all this, you understood that no doubt you require an expert assistance. Already company took expert, management expert is there, he already involved in that, he is a competent guy, independent guy. Why to go with auditor expert again? No need, no need. Directly go with management expert. Suppose if management expert is employed by the entity and management has influence over his work and management expert competence and capability is not proper, management expert is subject to some standards which are not a benchmark in the industry, I will not go with management expert. There I will go with what? Auditor's expert. So here in the standard there are two concepts which are confusing. What factors auditor has to check whether for determining need of an expert? The answer is different. What considerations when you are deciding need of an auditor's expert? The answer is different. I hope you understood the difference. For both of this, you understood the difference. One is, do I need an expert in the audit? Yes, I need it because some actual valuation is going on, some legal opinion pending case is there. So because of that, some expert help is required. Already management expert is there. Are you okay with this report? I'm okay with this report. He's competent, independent, objective, super standards is following. He's a member of some well-recognized professional body. So I can follow him. Suppose you decided not to follow him. You decided not to follow him because of various reasons. Then the need of auditor expert comes into picture. Then the need of auditor's expert comes into picture. This is what the entire standard is. Now what else standard all actually covers? Okay, you decided to go with auditor's expert and you recruited auditor expert. Auditor experts are again two types. Auditors internal expert, auditors external expert. Auditor internal expert means what? Suppose I want a legal opinion. My partner, one of the partner, mine is a network firm. Mine is a network firm. In my network there is another firm. In that there is one partner who is also law graduate, and he is having extreme legal opinion knowledge. So since the person whose advice I am going to take is belonging to the same network which I belong to, he is internal expert. Who is he? He is an internal expert. Suppose I try to find internally itself whether do we have any proper legal opinion person or any actuary do we have? No, we don't have in our entire network. Then I googled it, just dial or something through references, I found one lawyer and I recruited him. That is external expert. Who will pay auditor's experts remuneration? Client only will pay, not the auditor. Why auditor will pay? I am doing audit. Any work I do. By the way, why am I recruiting audit expert? For getting evidence whether the financial statements are true and fair. It is related to audit. It is related to audit expenditure. Audit expenditure has to be reimbursed by company, 142 section. Sir, no. So auditor's expert remuneration will be compensated only by the company. But who will recruit him? Directly the auditor will recruit, and that's why we call him as what? Auditor's expert. So now you recruited, now you explained him the situation. Now he took some time and researched and gave finally his workings. Don't you check these workings? Do we need to check his workings or not before we rely upon that working? Yes, we need to check auditor experts working. That is one more. Evaluate competence, capability, objectivity, and after that agreement with expert. Yeah, evaluating adequacy of auditor's expert work. So check how far the auditor's expert work is proper. How far auditor's expert work is proper, you check. Then finally, if you think the work of your expert, like you recruited, no, you felt after checking his work, you felt it is not adequate. You felt it is not sufficient. Then what you will do? You will feel not sufficient because of two reasons. One, he is not working properly. You will change the expert. Even though he tried his level best, he is not able to come to one conclusion. You understood that company is not providing proper information to him. Then you will give modified opinion, because it's a limitation on expert. Limitation on auditor expert leads to non-obtaining evidence. Non-obtaining evidence leads to not able to conclude on the particular aspect. If you're not able to conclude, you have to give which opinion? Modified opinion. And finally, how to report the same in auditor's report. Once expert report is given, how to report the same in auditor's report. Suppose expert said the financial statements what they are showing is wrong. They are showing it as a contingent, but it actually requires provision. It actually requires provision. So you told management, sir, this is the reason, this is the issue. My expert is so competent, so talented. He is governed by this professional body. He is expert in the industry from so long years. So his opinion actually prevails. So I take his opinion and consider the financial statements are not true and fair. So I am going to qualify my opinion based on expert report. Are you getting the point? Suppose if expert said everything is good, I will also check if everything is good. I will give unmodified opinion. Now the point here is, now you are using expert, and ultimately because of the expert your audit opinion is influencing, right? Because of the expert opinion your audit opinion is also getting influenced. Is expert responsible later on if at all something went wrong? Auditors expert do not have any responsibility. Auditors expert do not have any responsibility with respect to the opinion expressed by auditor. Suppose he gave a wrong report. You relied upon him and gave unqualified opinion on the financial statements. Tomorrow it came to like highlight. It was revealed that this expert is bribed by the management in the back end. This expert is bribed by the management, and you were ultimately became cheated. You gave unqualified. You defend to the court of law that you did your duty genuinely. You interacted with him genuinely. You posed him various questions genuinely. You verified his workings. After thorough due diligence only, you conducted audit. You prove this in the court of law. You will be treated as like innocent. And the expert who colluded with management, right? For him also there is a regulatory authority, like for us ICI is there, no? For him also some code of ethics that will be there, no? They will take care of it. If he do fraud in execution of his duties, he will take care of it. Like if we do a mistake, somebody can file a complaint on us. If they do a mistake, we can file a complaint on them. We can report him. We can complain to Bar Council of India that this lawyer is cheating. Getting it? We can report to Actuaries Institute of India that this actuary is cheating. We can report to Engineers of India. There is an institution, okay, Indian Engineers of India, like Institute of Engineers of India, IEI we call it as. So you can report there or not. So this is what the entire standard is actually all about. So now let's look at one by one. So who is an auditor's expert? It is an individual or organization possessing expertise in a field other than accounting and auditing, whose work in that field is used by auditor to assist the auditor in obtaining evidence sufficient, appropriate. Whose work, suppose if it is whose work in that field is used by entity to assist the entity in preparing financial statements, then we call him as what? Management expert. An auditor's expert may be either an auditor's internal expert or an auditor's external expert. When do we call him as internal? If he is a partner of the firm or staff of the firm, including temporary staff, or if it is a partner of audit firm of a network firm. So network firm auditors also part of internal experts only, because network is one and same, substance over form. Now, what do you mean by expertise in a field other than accounting and auditing? What do you mean by expertise? For example, evaluation, the valuation of compliance, financial instruments, land and buildings, plant and machinery. Suppose company went for evaluation of plant and machinery and all. Chartered accountants cannot do that. So he is an expert. So whether the revaluation performed by the company of the land and building or plant and machinery, is it properly done or not? So we want some expert opinion. Reliance Industries has increased the useful life of asset from 30 years to 50 years for a worth of 3.9 lakh crore worth of plant and machinery. So whether that revision in the useful life from 30 to 50, is it fine? Is it correct? Like, is it genuine? Like, I want to know. So there I may require an expert, because plant and machinery, how long it works, how do I know? Estimation of oil and gas reserves, actuarial calculations, interpretation of laws and regulations, analysis of complex, unusual tax compliance issues. All this understood. Suppose, this company has a subsidiary company somewhere abroad, and that company sold some shares of its subsidiary company to another entity. Whether capital gains tax attracts in India or not is the question. Whether capital gains tax attract in India or not is the question. Yes, it will attract 90% of the time, because the subsidiary which is there outside India derived its value from Indian company shares, Indian company ownership. And third subsidiary, step down subsidiary, derived its value based on the subsidiary. Vodafone case, if you see, there is a transfer of shares of a foreign company by a non-resident to another non-resident outside India. This entire transaction happened outside India, not happened in India. But see, the tax litigation came to Vodafone in India. What happened in Vodafone is they transferred shares of one foreign company by a non-resident foreign company to another foreign company. A foreign company share is sold outside India by one foreign company to another foreign company. How come it attracts tax in India? Because those shares which they sold, they have value because of the assets in India. Are you getting the point? Because of the underlying assets in India, these shares are having value. In that route, department taxed them. Those shares are outside company shares. That shares are sold by one non-resident to another non-resident. Typically speaking, no domestic, instruments are involved. But then why Indian tax law has taxed them? Because ownership of Indian assets changed because of this transfer. It's an indirect transfer of capital assets situated in India, and they taxed it. That is what Vodafone case exactly. So now see, imagine this kind of situation you face in real life audit. So whether this is attracting tax obligation or not, you may have to require guidance, right? So suppose I'm not an expert in taxation domain. So obviously I need to go for some taxation domain expert, especially not chartered accountant, lawyers only. I need to go to lawyers who are dealing in taxation matters, especially this foreign transaction matters. There are separate lawyers in practice who deal only tax cases. There are some lawyers who only deal with criminal cases. So within the law also, within the lawyers, they have again their own domain. Like we have internal audit, stat audit, like that. No, they have also. So some lawyers are expert in IPRs, intellectual property rights. Some lawyers are expert in criminal laws. Some lawyers are expert in civil cases, domestic cases, those cases. Some lawyers are experts in tax cases. Some lawyers are expert in jurisdictional, conflict related cases. So like this. Some lawyers are expert in municipality related dealings, government related dealings, like that. Then applicability, what is the standard says? SA 620 deals with auditor responsibility regarding use of work in a field of expertise other than accounting and auditing when that work is used to assist the auditor in getting evidence. This this standard does not apply in a situation where engagement team includes a member who is expertise in which area? Accounting and auditing. Suppose if I take help of my partner in accounting or auditing matters, this standard will not apply. This standard comes into picture only when you are taking help of an expert who is expert in other than accounts and auditing. And this standard will not apply if at all you are using management expert directly. If at all you are taking the evidence generated by management expert, this standard will not apply. Indirectly, when do this standard apply? This standard apply only when you are using auditor's expert. And the standard at the beginning itself says auditor has sole responsibility. The auditor has sole responsibility for audit opinion expressed, and that responsibility is not reduced by auditor's use of work of auditor's expert. Even though using his work, your responsibility will not reduce. Are you clear? However, nonetheless means, however, if auditor is using work of auditor expert, having followed this standard, concludes that the work of expert is adequate for the purpose of audit, the auditor may accept expert's findings or conclusions in the expert field as appropriate audit evidence. If you feel the expert conclusions are appropriate, you felt, yeah, he genuinely gave expertise opinion, he gave, you can accept the conclusion and proceed in the audit. You can take it as audit evidence. Even though he is not responsible, you can take the conclusion given by him as audit evidence. Look, at the end of the day, always remember, our opinion is a reasonable assurance. We are only responsible to give reasonable assurance, not responsible to give absolute assurance. So protection can be claimed under any of the situation. So we are protected always under the reasonable assurance clause, under the inherent limitation clause. Clear? We'll continue balance stand in the next session. Okay, already exhausted, no? Fine. Yes, using the work of auditors expert, we understood the basic concept of the standard. So what we understood in the standard is, at certain cases, the auditors require expert assistance for obtaining sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So under this standard, expert refers to a person having expertise in any field other than accounts and audit. If that person's work is used by management for preparation and presentation of financial statements, we call him as management expert. If that person's help is used by auditor for obtaining audit evidence, look at the very clearly drafted objective of auditor using expert is to get evidence. Objective behind using expert by management is to ensure that the valuations are correct so that the financials are free from misstatement. So to prepare financials is the objective. So based upon the objective only they defined. And in the standard, what topics we have is, first of all, when do you think that you require an expert? How do you decide that an expert is required? Generally, how do we decide? Tell me. Generally, suppose I am doing audit of a pharma company for the first time. Pharma industry. Pharma company, by it means like it will have so many regulations. Medical council regulations, international regulations, drug authorities regulations, like they need to comply with so many standards, so many rules and regulations, yes or no? And the way the pharma industry operates is completely different from a traditional manufacturing industry. Of course, it is a manufacturing industry, but the way it operates is completely different from other industries. So obviously, to understand how pharma industry works, in the first time of the audit, definitely I need some medical industry, like a pharma industry expert I need. So expert assistance in pharma industry is required, especially with respect to certain permissions related interpretations. Like many drugs, suppose like Sun Pharma, suppose you take Sun Pharma company, you're doing audit of Sun Pharma, and they are having some, okay, but 15 to 20 topmost drugs, like which are highly sold. From them only 70% of the revenue comes for Sun Pharma, for example. With respect to those drugs, whether they complied with medical guidelines, drug authority guidelines, international medicine related, all that guidelines, whether they complied or not, how can I check? We can't understand the terminology, yes or no? So like you tell me, there is a medicine, there is a medical term, I know this term, I somehow mugged up like anything long back, 5 years back. Pneumono-alter microscopic silicovolcanoconiosis. You know this? It's nothing but a disease for lungs, cough. Okay, this is one of the largest word, 41 letters of pneumono-alter microscopic silicovolcanosis. I split and learn all of that. So this took me 1 hour to mug up. Right. So definitely that, and in the permission, all that documents, generic name will not be there. Scientific name will be there, which we can't understand. So there I require a pharma expert who can interpret about permissions. Suppose management has already taken one independent expert opinion on that, whether permissions were taken or not. If at all I feel he is independent, if at all he is very good, all that, I can go with him. Otherwise I'll go with auditor's expert. But first of all, I'm not talking about to go with management expert or auditor. I'm talking about, first of all, expert is required or not. Yes, in this scenario, to interpret permissions properly, expert assistance is required. So it depends upon whether an expert is required or not. It depends upon, you see here, an auditor's expert may be needed to assist the auditor in one or more of the following activities. Like you see, auditor may obtain, okay, fine, let me explain this. So first of all, where and all we generally feel expert is required? One, understanding of the entity and its environment, including internal control, like what exactly the company is doing, how the entity works, what is the environment in which they work, and what are the regulatories that are applicable. Like some industries, suppose you are appointed as an auditor of defense entity, defense equipment manufacturing entity. Obviously it is not routine from our traditional audit, because defense means there will be so many confidentiality guidelines and all will apply, yes or no? So to understand that business, some expert assistance is required. While identifying and assessing risk of MMS, in pharma, where and all, like in pharma manufacturing entity, how scrap will be generated, how that scrap will be disposed. Suppose if it's iron and steel, I can understand market rates will be there, all that will be there. How in pharma I can understand? Suppose a diamond manufacturing company, they appointed me. They appoint a diamond manufacturing company. You know, right? In Gujarat, we have now a biggest diamond house, biggest diamond like manufacturing place. It's a biggest factory in the world itself now. So big, almost they're close to 1.5 lakh employees work, close to such a big campus. Now, if a diamond, company, manufacturing company appointed me, and now they do diamond valuation, closing stock, for example. Valuation of closing stock in diamond. See, if it is a gold manufacturing, gold company, jewelry company, I can understand because gold is an international prices are there, prices are displayed. Diamond, there is no regulated market. For diamonds, there is no regulated market. You go Kalyan Jewelers, the diamond rate is different. You go Tata, this one, Tanishq, you go, the price is different. Kazana, you go, the price is different. You go Blue Stone, the price is different. The diamond price is different at every store. And one store you buy diamond and go and sell in another store, you will not get single rupee. In the same store, you have to exchange the diamond, or in the same store, you have to return. Only then there will be a resale value. So there is no regulated market for diamonds. So how to value the closing value? I mean, how to value the closing stock of the diamonds? Risk of MMS. There is a high risk of MMS in valuation of diamonds. So there, I can take the help of industry expert. Determining and implementing overall response to assessed risk. Now, I take the help of the expert. Okay, how to value closing stock of diamonds. So on what basis this value will be, valued. Now, in the procedure he explained to me, I found some risks. Like he said, some data has to be obtained from 10 to 15 diamond merchants, how they are valuing closing stock, and based upon that we need to value the diamonds. One of the procedure which he outlined, one of the procedure which he gave is, we need to get one of the procedure for diamond valuation is, we shall let us get from 15 to 20 different merchants of same size of business. 15 to 20 different merchants, and how are they valuing the diamonds? So let us take those workings, and accordingly our valuation also will be done. Okay, so fine. Since this is a process, he told me how to implement this process. I need to design audit procedure. Designing an audit procedure, implementing an audit procedure is called as what? Further audit procedure. Further audit procedure is called as what? Response to risk assessment. What is it actually called as? Response to assessed risk. Second point is saying what? First, understand the entity. Second, do the risk assessment. Third one, based on the risk, design further audit procedure. Further audit procedure is what? Overall response to assessed risk. So first both are talking about 315. This one is talking about 330. Third one, designing and performing further audit procedure, determining and implementing overall response. Both are 330. Both are actually 330. So now whatever response, you assessed some risk. Like in diamond closing stock valuation, there is a high risk you assessed. How to respond to this risk? By performing further audit procedure, which are substantive procedures and compliance procedure. So designing and performing further audit procedures to respond to assessed risk at assertion level, comprising test of controls, substantive procedure. Now they use the word assertion level. Whatever risk that we identify, these risks are again classified into two categories: financial statement level risk, assertion level risk. Financial statement level risk, assertion level risk. Right now, I am not worried about diamond quantity of closing stock. I am mostly worried about the valuation part. So which assertion I am worried about? Valuation of closing stock diamond. Closing stock of diamond. That assertion I am worried about. For that assertion, what kind of procedures, substantive procedures I must do? External confirmation you must take from various merchants in the industry. So we are buying from various merchants. Take external confirmation from them, and also take how they are valuing, if at all possible. That information also try to obtain. So this is our specific response of substantive procedure, specific further audit procedure. Then finally, what you need to do? Okay, based on this response, based on the further audit procedure, you get some evidence, right? Evaluate the evidence. This is what in audit happens, right? Entire audit process is listed out here. Evaluating sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence obtained in forming an opinion on financials. Now you see this question: in what circumstances auditor's expert may be required, or under what circumstances auditor may require need of an expert? Under what circumstances auditor may need, or in what areas, they may tell you, in what areas auditor may require an expert assistance. We require expert assistance at all the areas of audit. 1, for understanding the entity and its business environment controls. 2, for conducting risk assessment process as required by 315. 3, based on the assessed risk, I need to respond. I need to design and implement an audit plan. There I may require expert assistance because I don't know how much time it takes for valuation. And 4, for actually performing the substantive procedures, compliance procedures at assertion level for the assessed risk. 5, once we got the evidence, no, is this evidence sufficient? Is this evidence appropriate? Because I am not expert in this industry. I don't know which certificate, if I see whether diamond is qualitative or not, I can't assess based on some certificate you give me. So whether this certificate is appropriate or not, somebody has to help me. Whether the information, whatever I'm getting, so that I can proceed further, I can't assess based on that. Somebody has to give me. See, in court of law also, that's why you see multiple branch of people work in court of law. Witnesses will be, expert witness will be there, normal witness will be there. Expert witness means we come under generally expert witness category. If a CA is representing, if a CA is attending to a court and giving a witness in the capacity of the chartered accountant, generally we are called as expert witness. So court will rely upon us. Same way some professional should be there. Here also some expert should be required. We require. If he tells, yes, this is sufficient, this is appropriate, then I will go further. So for evaluating sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence, for performing further audit procedure, for designing and implementing overall response, for doing risk assessment, and for understanding the business as a whole, at every sub-process in audit. Simply what they are saying, at every sub-process in audit, we require expert assistance. We may require at any of these levels. Typically, all the levels in audit is covered here. So for understanding the entity and its environment, for conducting risk assessment process, for designing and implementing overall response to assessed risk, for performing further audit procedures at assertion level, which includes test of controls and substantive, and you get evidence, right, to evaluate whether the evidence is sufficient and appropriate. That also expert only has to help sometimes. Understood. Next. Now you see, factors for determining expert. Like on what basis you require an expert? First, what are they explaining? We require expert in any of these areas. First, they are explaining with like what is the question? On what basis you think you require an expert? On what basis you think an expert is required? First, I'm explaining how the standard is explaining. In these areas, general I require expert. When I will require when an expert is required, an auditor who is not an expert in a relevant field other than accounting and auditing may be able to obtain sufficient understanding of that field to perform an audit without an auditor expert. This understanding may be obtained through, like they're explaining here one more point. Sometimes, no, though I don't have exposure in that field, though that particular field is outside my domain, accounts and audit domain, outside my domain, there sometimes I may not feel I don't require expert because of experience in auditing those entities. Suppose I am the auditor of pharma company, not for the first time. I am doing 11th year audit. For example, I am doing audit for the 11th year, different pharma companies. Our firm is specialist in pharma audits. Our firm is specialist in hospital audits. Generally, you see, some firms will have many hospitals audit. Like if they're very good in even hospital entities, hospitals, like their entities, these entities, they give audit to those auditors who have a prior experience in hospitals audit. They'll give priority to them. They'll give priority to the auditors who have, because hospital industry, again, hospital, the way how hospital functions, the way billing happens, the kind of revenue centers they have is again different. So whether an expert is required or not, it depends upon experience of the auditor in the auditing those entities where other than accounting and audit expertise is also required. And so experience in auditing auditing entities that require such expertise in preparation of their financials. So generally, like once again you read here, an auditor who is not an expert other than accounting and auditing, he is not an expert in other than accounting and auditing, may be able to obtain sufficient understanding of that particular field. Which field? Other than accounts and auditing, to perform audit without an expert need. So when he can perform the audit without expert need, like because you are doing regularly audit, experience in auditing those entities which require such expertise in preparation, or education or professional development in particular field. For example, we have guidance notes on audit of insurance company. We have guidance note on audit of sugar industries. We have guidance note on charitable trust audit. We have guidance notes on various industries audits. You can find out in ICA website. We have various guidance notes. You read the guidance note, you will get an idea. So how do you get the knowledge of other field? Through a formal course. One is through a formal courses, or by discussing with individuals possessing expertise in relevant field for the purpose of enhancing your own capacity to deal with the matters in that field. Nothing but talking to friends. Correct? Huh? Like suppose you got a pharma audit. Your friend is, you have another friend who is also an audit firm, which they are already doing pharma audit. Don't you call him and ask? That's what they're saying. Discussion with individuals possessing expertise in relevant field. Why are you discussing? For enhancing your own capacity, your own understanding, for enhancing auditors' own capacity to deal with the matters in that field. Understood? And discussion with other auditors who have already performed similar engagements. That is also nothing but B, second point, substitute another one. Discuss with some other auditors in the industry. That is why we have in Chennai, this is very popular, Chartered Accountant Study Circles. There is a very big BCAS, Bombay Chartered Accountant Study Circle. BCAS is a very big study circle in entire India. They perform activities parallel to ICA. BCAS International Conference will have attendees of more than 3,000, 4,000. And the price is double the amount which ICA International Conference charges for members. So prestigious organization, Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. And Chennai also, we have Chennai Chartered Accountant Society. In Hyderabad also recently they started some 3 years ago, Hyderabad Chartered Accountant Society, HCAS. So everywhere they are starting this. Like it's a community of CAs fraternity where they share knowledge. Like where there will be panel discussions, all that. Next. So like what are they saying? What are they saying? You see, factors determining the need of an expert. Why? When? First of all, I need an expert. In order to explain when you need, first of all, where you need, they are explaining. Where auditor may require an expert assistance, they are explaining. Then they are explaining, sometimes auditor may not require expertise relating to a field other than accounts and audit because he has experience in doing audit of those entities which require that specialized knowledge in the field. Or 2, maybe he is having educational or professional education in that particular field. I have done a course on pharma audit, for example. I have completed a course on pharma audit. You see, that's why there is a certification course on bank audit, concurrent audit. Concurrent audit certification course is organizing. Because bank audit, how do I know? I am not well versed with the banking terminology, how bank exactly functions. I know it has interest income, it gives loans, it gets interest income, it accepts deposits. I know basic structure of a bank, but exactly how processes are there in a bank, how sub-processes will be there in a bank, I don't know. So suddenly tomorrow a bank appointed me, because I applied for bank audits, they appointed me as a concurrent auditor. How can I go and do concurrent audit without any knowledge? So institute is organizing certification course on concurrent audit. Institute is organizing certification courses on valuation. So many courses institute is organizing, certification courses. Systems audit. For example, some companies call us for systems audit. Systems audit, IS audit, we call it as very popular. It's going to be like super revenue center for auditors. IS audits. IS audit means how the system is working. So is the system has any vulnerabilities? Does the system is securely protecting the data of the entity? It's completely digital audit. We'll discuss a few terms of IS audit in digital audit chapter. Next, like for that, institute is having a course called Diploma in Information Systems Audit, which is parallel course for CISA, which is there in the United States. There are many post-qualification courses that we have. Next, but remember, getting a certificate is not a big deal. Anybody can get that. That exposure and understanding is what important. So discussion with other auditors who performed similar engagements. So by doing all this, I can understand first of all whether an expert is required or not. Correct? Whether an expert is required or not, I can understand based upon this. Suppose I have experience in auditing those entities, I have education, professional development in that particular industry, or I discuss with others in with them, and if I am able to resolve on my own, I may not require an expert. Indirectly, when I need an expert, if I don't have experience in auditing those entities, or if I don't have anybody to discuss from whom I can obtain the knowledge about this industry, yes or no, or I don't have any formal courses and all, if in all these cases no, then definitely I require an expert. Understood how the standard has been drafted. Now, okay, you require expert, fine, you understood. Okay, in this entity that you're going to do audit, because you don't have any knowledge of how the entity functions, how the entity risks factors are, you don't know anything about this, so you require an expert. But already management have employed an expert. Management has already employed an expert of a reputed firm. They are also a reputed firm. Firm means, don't think audit firm always. Firm means some, it may be legal firm, it may be actuary firm, it may be architectural related firm, it may be some firm, some organization. So the firm, the entity, the company whom we are doing audit, they already appointed one organization as an expert, and they have taken independent confirmations from them for everything wherever expert assistance is required. Now, can you rely upon it? Or do you need a separate expert on your own? Do you bring an expert separately? First we understood, do I need an expert or not? First, okay, should I go for an expert advice or not? You understood, okay, better to go for expert advice. Now, already company is having an expert. Can I go with him, or better I'll go independently again? This is the second question in this standard. Considerations when deciding whether to use an auditor's expert. Whether to use an auditor's expert. So when auditor will, like, what points I will consider whether I will go for an auditor's expert or not? First point, suppose whether management has used a management expert. If at all management used a management expert in preparing financial statement, in such a case the following factors will be considered. What you will consider? Whether the management expert is employed by the entity or is a third party engaged by it, whether the management expert is employee of the entity or an independent firm, independent organization. How far management is controlling, how far management is influencing the work of the management expert. How is his competence and capability? What is his qualification? What is his expertise? What is his reputation? Whether the management expert is subject to any technical performance standards or other professional or industry requirement. Suppose we chartered accountants, our opinion is trusted by people because they know somewhere we are regulated by somebody. We are blindly, like when we visit a doctor, when we go for a hospital, do we ask first you show me certificate, then only ask about questions? No. We naturally believe that. A doctor cannot set up a practice because there is a field monitoring will be there by the government authorities. Field monitoring, there will be every day in every street some governmental authority officer will be roaming to identify whether any new establishment started. If any new establishment is started, they'll go and inquire who is the owner, what is running, all that. So whatever small clinics that we see, most of them were scrutinized. Most of them were scrutinized by local authority, some officers. They'll scrutinize them. Only if he's having a proper valid degree in medicine, all that, then only the local authority will give permission. That is what called as labor license. So the first question in a local authority they'll ask is, where is labor license? Where is business license? Now, labor license is primary business license for anybody. And that labor license you will get only when you give sufficient proofs for your business. Suppose I'm running a clinic, I need to give my medical certificate, all that proofs. So doctors suppose in a pharma industry, we related to one drug related thing. There is one scientist is there, which the pharma company hired. If at all that scientist is a member of some, scientists also will have some associations. Just like we have auditing and assurance standard, but they will also have some drug control associations. So he's a member of so reputed drug control body, and there the standards are well established. If I have that knowledge, I will believe his opinion very well. How far, like you see, whether management expertise subject to technical performance standards or other professional or industry requirements, whether he is liable for any standards, just like we are liable for auditing standards for doing audit. So I will see, suppose the management expert is not regulated by anybody. He doesn't have any link with any regulatory body. Just like that they appointed, which means the management expertise not subject to any professional standards. So tomorrow if you do something wrong, there is nobody to punish him unless by a general civil code. If we do something wrong, we are punished by a general civil code, which is generally applicable, general criminal civil code, whatever is there, and punishable by even ICA also. We have a specific regulatory body to punish us. So from the beginning, once again, the auditor may determine that it is necessary to use an auditor expert to obtain a sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. So the auditor sometimes may feel it necessary to use separate expert, auditor's expert. The following considerations will be taken into account whether to use an auditor expert. What considerations? First one, check whether management appointed management expert, whether the management has used any management expert in preparation and presentation of financial statements. If so, check the following: whether the management expert is employed by the entity or a third party, whether management is having control or influence on him, whether management expert is competent and capable guy, whether management expert, whoever they appointed, whether is he subject to any standards or any requirements, regulatory requirements, or he's not having any relation with anybody. Check out. And that is one of the matter, whether if management has already appointed expert, whether to go with a separate auditor's expert or can I satisfy with this management expert is your choice. If at all you think in all these cases the answer is yes, positive. Yes, management expert is highly competent, highly capable. Management cannot influence him. He is very independent. Management expert is a third party. He's not employee of the organization. He's an independent lawyer firm, and that's a very reputed firm. So I can absolutely take his legal opinion. And what is the nature and significance of the matter, including its complexity? Evaluating closing stock value of diamonds which are manufactured, especially diamond scrap. You know what? Diamond valuation is something different. Depending on the size of the diamond, the value is again different. It's not about proportionate. Suppose like if a diamond is of some 3 or 4 cents, for example, 3 or 4 cents, that value may be, let us assume, 1 lakh, so maybe 30,000 per 3 or 4 cent diamond, for example, let us assume. If the diamond size is half a carat, means 50 cents. Proportionately, what we will do, into 10 we apply. No, it's into 100. It depends upon cut, shape, all that, like the number of cuts it has, the clear shape it has, so many things. That is why diamond is not a regulated market. Significance of the matter and complexity involved in valuation of diamonds, that decides whether should I go for auditor expert or not. The risk of MMS in the matter and expected nature of procedures. So what kind of procedures we have to perform to respond to the risk? What is the risk in diamond valuation? There is a possibility that the diamonds are overvalued. The possibility that diamonds are overvalued. This is the possibility. So what now what kind of procedure if I do, this risk can be mitigated? The only procedure is proper valuation has to be made by an expert, including auditor's knowledge and experience with the work of experts in relation to such matters. I should also check parallelly, do I have any diamond valuation? Like, do I know any diamond related valuation? Remember again, jewelry shops, the way they value diamonds is different. Manufacturer, the way they value diamonds is different. Traders of diamonds exclusively engaged in, their valuation principles are different. The availability of alternative sources of evidence. How far another alternate source of evidence is available? Suppose if I have a readily available market data for diamonds, happily I can take that. I don't even need auditor's expert, management expert is there. I'll take his opinion, I'll take alternative evidence, and I'll proceed further. Understood or not? All of you? Now once again, see, in these kinds of standards, most of our standards will be like this lengthy. It feels like they're very connected, close to. Once you read independently each and every part, you should as a whole once again view the standard. That is when you will not confuse. If you don't do this overview exercise at the end of the standard, you will confuse. So first, what are they saying? Like, look at what are they saying. First of all, do I need an expert? In what areas we generally require expert, they listed out. We require expert at the time of understanding the entity. In some entities we require, because diamond industry, I need to understand how it works. 2, to identify risk of MMS. So in diamond manufacturing sector, where and all mistakes can happen, where and all frauds can happen, I don't know. How to design responses to these risks, how to plan the audit in diamond industry sector, I may need expert assistance. How to test controls, how to perform substantive procedures, I may need an expert. And we are getting evidences, there also sometimes I may need expert assistance. Now these are the areas where we need, and it also depends upon whether you need an expert. It depends upon how far you are having experience in these entities that require this expertise, such expertise. Do you went through any formal courses, or do you have anybody to discuss who are expert in that relevant field, or discuss with other auditors who already performed a similar engagement? So check all this. If at all everywhere you are getting answer, yes, I have some people, everybody know, there are people around me too who help me, all that, then you don't require an expert. Okay, suppose you decided you require an expert. No, I don't have any knowledge about this industries. I didn't undergo any formal training, anything, and there is nobody I know who can explain me about this industry. So then I need definitely expert. Okay, you need an expert, audit expert, right? Should I go with audit experts blindly, or if at all management has already appointed management expert, can I go and adjust with their reports? It depends upon whether management expert is appointed by the entity or a third party, whether management is controlling him or influencing him, whether management expert is competent and capable, whether management expert is liable for any punishment if at all he failed to comply with his professional standards. If at all all these cases, yes sir, he is highly regulated, then I'll take his opinion. And whether I need a separate auditor expert or not, it also depends on significance of the matter and complexity involved. If the matter is very significant, no, I can't take risk at all, better go with auditor expert. If the risk of MMS is very high in that matter, go with auditor expert. What kind of procedures you need to perform to respond to identified risk? If at all the procedures, the nature of procedures to perform is outside your scope of competence, if the kind of procedure that we need to perform is beyond your competence level, go with the expert. Any other alternative evidence available? If at all evidence is available, no need to go. If evidence is not available, alternatively, better go with the audit expert. Getting the point? So this is a separate question. What are the considerations when deciding whether to use an auditor's expert? Whereas here, what are the factors or considerations for determining need of an expert? This question can be asked as a 4 marks question. This question can be asked as a 4 marks question. Don't write this answer for this. Need of an expert means different. Need of an auditor expert is different. Clear? Next. Nature, timing and extent of audit procedures influenced by auditor's expert's work. Suppose we recruited expert, fine, we understood auditor expert is required, so we want to recruit him. Like, what are all the points I should keep in mind, like if I'm recruiting him? In determining the nature, timing and extent of those procedures, the auditor shall consider nature of the matter to which that expert work relates to. Is it related to valuation? Is it related to existence confirmation? Is it related to condition of inventory confirmation? What exactly? Risk of MMS in the matter to which expert work relates to. How much risk involved? Whatever work I'm going to delegate him, what is the risk involved? What if the work assertion, if at all went to go wrong? Suppose if it went wrong, what are the consequences? Let us read one by one. Then again I'll connect with the previous one. Significance of that expert's work in the context of audit. His work is, how important his work is in the overall audit. In this company, closing stock of the diamonds is 30% of the total assets value. The value of stock of diamonds is 30% of the total assets value. So no doubt his work is very significant. The auditor's knowledge of and experience with the previous work performed by that expert. If at all I already have an exposure with him previous year, suppose I'm doing audit of this company from past 5 years, same expert is there. So if that is the case, naturally can relax. Whether that expert is subject to auditor's firm quality control policies and procedures, nothing but he is the expert, internal expert. In our firm, no. Every firm will have their own rules and regulations. Every audit firm, they have quality control policies, what works to do, how to do every work, all that. If at all the expert help I'm taking, no. He is subjected to firm quality control policies. When somebody is subjected to our firm quality control policies, when he is part of our firm, when an expert is part of our firm, we call him as what? Internal expert. We call him as internal expert. Previous session I told you, experts are again 2 types: auditors internal expert, auditors external expert. If the person, if I want an opinion from an expert on something, and that expert is either within the firm or within the network firms, we call him as what? Internal expert. Remaining are called as what? External experts. In the following cases, generally more extensive audit procedures would be required. In the following cases, more procedures would be required. The work of auditor expert related to significant matter that involves subjective and complex judgment. The auditor has not previously used the work of auditor expert, means first time I interacting with him, and has no prior knowledge of his competence, capability, all that. The auditor's expert is performing procedures that are integral to the audit rather than being consulted to provide evidence on an individual matter. The expertise of auditor's external expert and is not subject to firm quality control policies. I know it is very vague. Now let's understand what exactly it is dealing with. What are the nature and timing of audit procedure? Nature, timing and extent of audit procedures influenced by auditor's expert work. What does it mean? Once you decide auditor expert is required, you have to plan audit accordingly, right? You need to put that in the audit plan also, right? Okay, like generally if at all there's no expert work is required, I can finish that valuation work in 3 days, but I have to go with expert now. I have to take expert help now. So my work depends upon, my conclusions depends upon his conclusions. How long he will take, how do I know? So nature, timing and extent of my audit procedures depend upon which are these procedures are influenced by auditor's expert work. So my audit procedures extent, it depends, it's purely influenced by auditor's expert work because I'm using him. How far it will be influenced? In determining, generally it is dependent on nature of the matter to which expert work leads to. What is the nature of the matter? Is it valuation? Is it existence related? What exactly the nature of the matter? Is it related to some fixed assets? Is it related to some approvals? What exactly the nature of matter to which his work relates to? That is one of the factors. See, generally, we don't do you think we read this and then follow in real life? No. We generally ask him, sir, this is a legal compliance related thing, pending litigation is there, you have to give an opinion. He said, sir, I will have to go through the entire case documents. And entire case documents look like almost close to 5,000 pages. So he said very clearly, sir, I need 20 days time to go through all these documents and get back to you. You're getting my point? So 20 days, which means my audit procedure, timing of audit will affect. 20 days I have to wait for him. So in the meantime, I will plan some other audit procedure. So nature of the matter which relates to which the expert word relates. What is the risk of MMS in that matter? What is the risk involved in that matter? And significance of that work in the audit. Suppose if the risk is very high, my audit procedures will badly affect because of his work. Are you getting it? I will not have discretion in my audit procedures, nature, timing, if at all expert work is very significant to me. The auditor's knowledge and experience. Suppose if I'm already working from past 5 years, this year also same aspect only. I know very well in the past, though he tell 20 days time, he'll give within 1 week only report. So I can actually, accordingly, I can plan my audit. And whether that expert is subject to auditor's firm quality control. See, suppose if at all he is my internal expert, no, I need not sit and tell him, look, your work is useful to me like this. Generally, no, if I go and ask expert, no, what opinion, they will ask for what purpose. You should tell the purpose also. Suppose expert opinion, a legal opinion to buy an immovable property. There, the way of work they do is different. Company already purchased immovable property. Whether the property purchased by the company is legally valid or not, to get this opinion, to get an opinion on this, the process is different. So experts, they'll ask you what is the purpose. So you should clearly tell them, look, I am doing audit. He will ask, what is audit? I need to give opinion on financials, whether they're true and fair. How will you give opinion on the financials? He'll ask. And I need to explain, like it's a reasonable assurance, I do sample, all that I'll explain. So much explanation will be there, all this. So he'll be asking continuously, maybe 2-3 days, I have to explain him what I will do in audit. What is his role in my audit? Suppose if his internal expert tell me, very quick, no, for me, it's very easy because he know already my audit works, what is the implications, all that he knows very well. So if at all, if the expert is subject to firm quality control policies, means indirectly is an internal expert. Indirectly, my nature and timing and extent of my audit procedures are less influenced by auditor's expert work. Able to comprehend? Clear? Now, where generally we require more extensive effort, tell me. So, like first point they're saying, first one what they're saying is, what factors influence nature, timing and extent of audit procedures? How auditors expert work influence your audit procedures? So what points will influence? Now here what they are saying, in the following cases I have to perform extensive work with respect to expert assistance. Suppose if the expert is outsider, not our firm, insider, obviously my nature and timing and extent of audit procedures will be drastically affected by this expert's work. Or the expert, no, he is performing procedures relating to something which is integral to audit, very important to audit, obviously my NTE will affect. Or I have no knowledge of working with him, his competence I don't know, his capability I don't know, so first 3-4 days I will sit and evaluate whether he is competent or not, and whether the expert work related to significant matter that involves complex and subjective judgments, whether the opinion whatever he is giving, is it related to some significant issue or complex issue? In all these cases, more extensive procedures is required. My nature, timing and extent of an audit process will increase substantially in all these cases. How nature, timing, extent of audit procedures are affected by experts' work, these matters will affect. Nature of the matter, risk involved, significance, prior experience with the expert, is the internal expert, these points will decide whether your nature and timing extent will be affected drastically or not. In the following cases, you have to perform extensive work. If it is a significant matter, no prior knowledge with him, and whatever he is doing is very integral part of the audit, and he is not subject to your firm quality, means he is an outside expert. In all these cases, I have to work more in depth with expert. I have to evaluate more in depth. Means this is completely talking about audit planning part. This segment is purely talking about what? Audit planning part. So that is one thing. Now see again, okay fine. So after I understand how experts work influence my audit, then I will have to check whether I can recruit him or not. Sometimes no, if I think nature of the matter is highly significant, risk is very high, and the work what he is going to do is highly significant, and I already know about him very well, like he is very good, he's having super competence, super capability, super credibility, and he's also moreover internal expert, I will directly recruit him. I will not even check further competence, capability, objectivity, because he's my internal expert. Obviously he's independent of the client, he is my firm partner, another partner or my employee, so he don't have any relation with the client, he is already objective, independent already, and I know his capability and competence because he is internal. Generally competence, capability, objectivity of audit expert we need to evaluate before recruit him. Evaluate his competence, evaluate his capability, evaluate his independence. To which expert we generally evaluate more, internal or external? External expert. You see, the auditor shall evaluate whether the auditor's expert has necessary competence, necessary capability, necessary objectivity, means unbiased nature, and especially external expert objectivity you need to check. This itself can be asked as a 3 marks question. 3 marks question. How? In the case of audit, in case of an external expert, the evaluation of objectivity shall include, like suppose if at all expert is external guy, you need to evaluate his independence with the entity where you are going to use his work. You need to evaluate, inquire regarding interest and relationships that may create a threat to that expert's objectivity. Same point we have seen when we are using internal audit direct assistance. When we are using internal audit direct assistance, we should check his objectivity. In that, what we need to check, what relations he has with the entity we need to check. The following evaluation shall be made. Further, you need to evaluate the following with respect to whom? External expert. Inquire the entity about any known interest or relationships that the entity has with an auditor external expert that may affect his objectivity. So I went to one lawyer to take a legal opinion, and when I called the entity and said, like, this is a lawyer, sir, you tell me, do you have any interaction with him earlier? He said, sir, he is my cousin brother. Tell me, so should I go with? If relationship exists, if at all relationship exists, discuss with the expert any applicable safeguards, including any professional requirements that apply to that expert. Sir, he is a cousin brother of our chairman, sir, who is already in the retirement mode. So you need not worry about his independence, all that. Getting it? So first of all, the fact that he was recruited will not be intimated to chairman, because it's all internal process. You're getting my point? Safeguards, if at all, if safeguards can be implemented, though just because expert is related to organization, that doesn't mean it's boycotted completely. See whether can you protect, can you put safeguards to the expert independence. For example, to understand putting safeguards means, like, we all know, I hope you are aware of company audit chapter. Relatives cannot hold securities for a value exceeding 1 lakh in the company group companies. All put together, you cannot hold share securities of a value exceeding 1 lakh. Suppose my relatives are holding 90,000, but they're having ownership, which means I'm having financial interest indirectly. Putting safeguard means what? I will tell them don't buy further. I will tell them do not buy any further shares. So whoever comes within the definition of relative, I need to specifically phone them, call them, and intimate them that you should not buy any further shares, and get a written declaration if possible. So this is applying safeguard. This is nothing but what? Applying safeguard. That's it. Evaluate whether safeguards are adequate to reduce threats to an acceptable level. So right now I spoke to them and I told all of them that please do not buy. Is this safeguards enough, or you need to put any other restriction? Interest and relationships includes what type of interest? It may be financial interest, it may be business interest, or it may be personal relationships, or it may be provision of other services by the expert. Means the expert, no, he is providing some other works services to the client, means he is getting remuneration for some other purpose also. He is getting remuneration for some other purpose. We have like suppose we are doing audit to a particular entity, we are doing audit to a particular client. Generally the client will ask some non-audit works also with us. They do ask non-audit works. Sir, you only do IT filing also, you only do ROC filing also, sir, GST filings also you only do, TDS filings also you only do. We trust you like anything, so we don't want to go with another auditor. Same. Now you are getting remuneration, one for audit that you are performing, two, you are getting remuneration for other services that you are performing. You know what ICA Council guidelines says? The remuneration that you are getting for non-audit services should not exceed the remuneration that you are getting for audit. Suppose if at all from a particular client I am getting 1 crore for non-audit services, 20 lakhs for audit. If tomorrow a conflict comes, which one I will compromise? Audit generally we compromise. Quality of audit gets compromised. If I give adverse opinion, client will remove me everywhere. This is just 20 lakhs. Okay, I'll compromise. Yes or no? So we want to see external expert whether he has any relationship priorly with the client. How far external expert is dependent on the client for some other services. If at all he is hugely dependent and he is getting a major share of revenue there, for me also he'll be helping now. For this he'll be getting some remuneration. That will nowhere comparable with the actual remuneration client paying to the expert. He will not be independent. He will not give me independent opinion. Able to visualize. And finally, okay, once I understand whether the entity has any interest and relationship, whether expert has any interest and relationship, if relationship exists, whether safeguards can be made, if safeguards are adequate so that they can reduce the threat of the independence of the expert, if all this is positive, I will go further. Then I will take a representation from the expert. What? I will obtain a written representation from external expert about any interest or relationship with the entity which he is aware of. Sir, please give me a declaration that you told this is the relationship that you're having, like your wife is having some shares in this entity, you have a loan with this company, and one of your relative is a independent director in this entity. So give me a declaration that what are all the relationships that you have with this entity, if at all I want to go with him. But remember, like tell me, if at all expert is having any relationship with the entity, does it mean he is permanently boycotted? No. He can take his work, he can see whether that independence is within the proper limits or not. Whether threat is affecting, is there any effect on independence? That you need to check. This common, sir. Today almost everybody is relative to everybody. Okay, this is common. So that's a very completely the companies are run by family people, complete family related people. So many are there, and obviously many of them will have relatives. Next, and whether the expert's work is subject to technical performance standards or other professional industry regulations, ethical standards and other membership requirements of a professional body, industry association, accreditation standards, licensing body, requirements imposed by law or regulation. You know, for every report that we give, ICI is the regulatory body that can monitor our reports, every report, because you're generating UDIN today. No document signed by you is valid without UDIN, almost every document. So for any work that we do, any certification we do, there is a professional standard on that we need to follow certain guidelines. If we do not follow proper guidelines, the professional body will punish us. So we have a very clear indication. See, suppose you are taking some valuation related, diamond valuation, some expert help. Is he liable for such a kind of regulation like how we are liable? Suppose he give a false certificate. Will he be liable? Will he be punishable under law? Is there any law or regulation? You need to check. Depending upon that, whether to go with him or not, he will be decided. Next, so whether expert's work is subject to performance standards, whether some requirements, some ethical standards or any membership requirements he has with respect to some association, accreditation standards, requirements imposed by law or regulation. So whether the expert is liable for all this or not, check out. Relevance of auditors' experts' competence to the matter for which expert work will be used, including any specific area, including any areas of specialty. For example, a particular actuary may specialize in property and casualty insurance, but has limited expertise regarding pension calculation. Means, just because he is a lawyer, he cannot give opinion on every aspect of legal issue. I told even in the previous session also, within the lawyers, they have some specializations. One is specialized in IPRs, another one is specialized in civil cases, another one is specialized in criminal cases, another one is specialized in domestic tax law cases, another lawyer is specialized in international tax law cases, another lawyer is exclusively specialized in India-US tax related cases. So the expert whom you are taking, now read this. Relevance of auditor's expert competence to the matter for which that work is used, including any areas of specialty within the expert's field. Suppose medicine related some approval process. There, let us assume the guidance note says you have to take a help of expert doctor. That's it. Expert doctor means who? Suppose the company is manufacturing medicine related to neuro. Can I go and take dialysis doctor related advice? No. Yes or no? I have to take only neuro. Getting it? The evaluation of experts' competence is a continuous process. Like you should keep on evaluating him. It's not that today you evaluated, next 1 week he's working on, that time you need not. If at all in between you felt suspicious about his work culture, the way he's doing work. So you need to always keep an open, like you need to continuously be skeptical. See, continuous process means nothing but be skeptical about his competence. Don't conclude immediately. Be skeptical. Throughout the audit, see how he's working. Evaluation of experts' competence is a continuous process, keeping in mind unexpected events and changes in conditions. Suddenly when he is working, he may buy entity shares. Suddenly when he is working, he might be getting close with the top management. Who knows? Now, once again, from the beginning, once again I'll repeat. The standard has to be read like this only. There's no substitute for this. Yeah. Another 15 minutes will close the standard. Already in the previous session we spent 25 minutes to 30 minutes. Now we are spending close to 1 or 10 minutes, hardly 1.5 hours to 1 or 40 minutes on this standard. This is one of the lengthy standard, 620. More than lengthy, I can say bit complex. 240 we have lengthy standard, 7-8 pages is there, 240. Earlier it was not there in final, it's there in inter, but now it is there in final. So first, what are they saying? How do you decide, or where do you need an expert? Where you need an expert, first of all. First they answered what? Where you need an expert. You can write questions like this here. Where do you need an expert? Okay, so where we can need an expert? One, understanding of the entity and its environment, performing risk assessment procedure, designing response to the assessed risk, performing further audit procedures, compliance, substantive, and for evaluating sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence. All the audit processes listed out. Okay, where you require. This is what when you require, when you need an expert, when you need an expert. How the standard answered? They answered indirectly when I don't need an expert. Correct? So when I don't require an expert, an auditor who is not an expert in a relevant field other than accounts and audit may be able to obtain understanding of that field without an auditor expert. Nothing but without an expert. In a particular field, I'm not expert. In that field, I don't require an expert. When he is having experience in auditing those entities which require this expertise, and he is having education, professional development in that field through formal courses, discussion with other individuals, discussion with other auditors. Then the third question, when you need auditor's expert, correct? When you need auditor's expert, when you need an auditor's expert, so the auditor may decide necessary to use an auditor's expert to obtain evidence. The following factors will play a crucial role. What are they? Whether management has used a management expert. If so, can auditor depend upon management expert without going for auditor expert? Depends upon whether what is the nature, scope and objectives. Like what is the exact scope of work management expert performed? What is the nature of work he performed? What is the scope he got? What objective he has? Whether this nature, scope and objective of the management expert is syncing with my objective of audit. Check out. Whether he is an employed by entity or third party engaging it, whether management has control over him, he is a competent, he is a subject to professional technical standards, what is the significance of the matter, what is the risk involved, what kind of procedures he is going to perform for the risk that we identify, and is there any alternative source that is available apart from expert. If at all alternative source is not available, go with expert. Clear? And remember, when you are deciding need of an auditor expert, you should also understand how his expert's work influence your nature, timing and extent of audit procedures. Nature, timing and extent of audit procedures are influenced by auditor's expert work. Comment. They'll give you one entire case kind of question. Below they'll give you the nature, timing and extent of procedures procedures performed by auditor are greatly influenced by auditor's expert in certain scenarios. They'll give you this question. In few cases, the nature, timing and extent of audit procedures are hugely influenced. What are they? Second part. The work of auditor expert relates to significant matters. In this case, obviously my audit procedure is hugely influenced by his work, and auditor has not previously worked with him, and expert is performing processes that are integral to the audit, means without his report I cannot go further. And expert is auditor's external expert and is not subject to firm quality control. He is not insider also, he is an outsider completely. Therefore my audit procedures greatly be influenced by his assistants, because I don't know anything about him. So what points you will consider, what points will affect the way you do audit, when you do audit, to what extent you do audit, especially when you are using auditor's expert. It is decided by what kind of matter it is, nature of the matter. Is it regarding understanding of the entity, or is it regarding a particular assertion related risk assessment? Suppose if it is related to particular risk assessment, assertion related risk assessment, I can even postpone it. Suppose if it is understanding the business, for understanding the business itself I need an expert, means from day one itself I need expert. So my audit is greatly affected by nature of the matter. Understood? Nature of the matter. Nature of the matter probably means where you need expert. Nature of the matter probably means where you need expert. Is it in understanding the company, or is it in assessing the risk, or is it in designing further audit procedures at assertion level, or is it in evaluating evidence? If it is evaluating evidence, now I can start audit comfortably, do like that work when I can keep a separate allocation time for it, and it is not integral process to audit. Suppose if my understanding, if I need expert, not for any of this, but for understanding business itself, which means my audit procedure is greatly affected. My timing will be badly affected with this work. Next. Now, okay, once you understood how far expert's work is influencing your audit, how far it is influencing your timing of audit, how far it is influencing your extent of audit, all that you understood, fine. Now, along with this, you should also check, is the expert competent guy? Is the expert capable? Is the expert independent? All this also you need to check, right? And now, you should also check whether the expert is subject to standards just like we subject to auditing standards. If at all he is not subjected to any standards, that expert I will not go. I will go with an expert who is having a regulatory body. You know, like outside no. There are many who are tax practitioners, call themselves as auditor. Yes or no? IT return filing, no? They do file return, they claim refund for the client, and they give build up that we got refund to you. And I feel very unfortunate, some CS are also advertising for refunds, call us. Not. How will refund, how will you get? Only if you have a genuine documentation. How in Andhra happens, you know? These tax practitioners pretend as if they talk to department internally, they discuss with commissioner of the income tax, and we brought you refund. This kind of build up they give. And generally, who will go to these tax practitioners? Kirana stores, wholesale market. Like, you know, there is a street in Chennai called Richie Street. You know, so much business happens. It's equal to one of the Infosys branch. That much business happens there. So let us assume in Richie Street, one electronic shop is there, like appliances shop, like electronic appliances. Close to in a year, they do a business of 10-15 crore. Minimum, I'm telling you a minimum number. Minimum number, they do a business of 10 to 15 crore. They'll have a margin of close to 3 crore. And where they'll have a net profit of more than 1 crore. And they declare income of 5 lakh and pay zero tax. Claim all the rebate, all that. If at all anybody have deducted TDS, because they are dealing in buying and selling of goods, right? TCS section 7 will apply. Okay, so they'll have this TCS credit. Some auditor they'll be having there locally. Okay, he don't know anything about tax audit, presumptive taxation, or nothing. He don't know anything about it. He is in that industry from past 20 years. That fellow is practicing in tax filing returns from past 20 years. He will go and talk to the owner, and the owner only trust him. Sir, I'm a chartered accountant, sir. I understand income tax law. All that if I go and tell also, no, we have auditor already 20 years. He's experienced than you. And he don't even have a basic knowledge of TDS, TCS, all that. And what he will do, he will put some expenses, dummy expenses, and he will claim refund. And this guy will claim refund, he'll get super refund in the bank, no, not paying any tax, nothing. Department notice will come. That time this fellow will not be there. This is what happening. Employees, most of the IT sector employees, you know, some CA will be working inside there. So they'll give to the CA only. Whoever is working, CA is there. No? This guy also shows like, I will bring refund for you. What refund? He will put political contribution, 1 crore. They ask PAN number, to which party you contributed, all the last details, no? We'll see when it comes, notice. That time we'll tell we mistakenly filed. He will get mistakenly penalty notice. Correct? So this is a problem. So always when we are choosing experts, no, we should see whether is there any regulatory body. If at all he do something wrong, is there anybody to punish? That's why we have, you can file a complaint on CA. You can just simply type file a complaint on chartered account. You'll get disciplinary committee link. I'll show you in ethics how to file. 3,000 rupees you have to pay application fee. 3,000 rupees application fee. If you win the case, you will get refund. Don't worry. Okay. Yes. So, like if at all he is external expert, you need to check his independence, integrity, objectivity, competence, all that you need to check. So inquire entity whether do they know any relationships they had with expert. Ask expert, do you think he knows any relationships that he had with the company? Whether any safeguards are there, whether are they in acceptable level, and whether he is subjected to any technical professional standards. And relevance of auditor's expert competence to the matter. Okay, he's a lawyer, but I want IPR related, intellectual property right related advisory. He don't deal with IPRs. Understood? Which means whether the person is an expert or not, we are seeing. Whether he is expertise in this matter also or not, we are seeing. Mere doctor is not sufficient. The field also important. Correctly? The evaluation of expert competence is a continuous process and it changes in circumstances. As the work started, it may change. My perception of his competence might update later on. Understood or not? Okay, fine. So first I understood where I need an expert. Then I understood when I need an expert. Then I understood when I need a separate expert of my own, auditor's expert. Then I understood which auditor expert I should choose. Internal, external, how. Like, because this expert work is influencing my nature, timing, extent of audit procedure. Okay, once I select an expert, I cannot directly recruit him. I should check his competence, I should check his capability, I should check his independence, all that. Once everything is evaluated, finally stamp, like yes, I can go with him. Enter agreement with him. Enter into agreement with the expert. The auditor shall agree in writing on the following matters. What? General, tell me, without looking at the answer, tell me what you will agree. Just tell me, common sense. What you have to do, what is my duty here? My duty is always same, giving opinion on the financials. What is your duty? There is a valuation of some diamond related thing. So that you need to value and then report to me. So this is his scope and objective. Second, I should tell him that very clearly, you should not disclose the matter to entity. Yes or no, until the work gets finished, you should not disclose. And your remuneration will be compensated by the entity. Common points like this, no? Yes or no? Will there be any specific additional new points? Now you see here, nature, scope and objective of the expert work. What are the respect means my role and responsibilities what? Your role and responsibilities what? Respective roles and responsibilities of the auditor and expert. Within what time you should complete the work, we should tell, no? Nature, timing and extent of communication between that and the form of any report. I will ask him, so like you see, this is the time within which you have to complete, and if you have any issues, you have to communicate me through mail or WhatsApp, and this is a format in which I want the report. I want a written report, not oral confirmation. And need of audit expert to observe confidentiality. I should tell him that don't tell anything to the client. What kind of work will you say? Okay, I will be introducing you to the client, but how are you exactly going to verify that? In-depth process don't discuss with the client. Clear? And not only that, whatever data he will gather during the expert like testing, all that he should not disclose to third parties. Correct? Expert, whatever documentation is there, I can have a written prior agreement that entire your documentation I will only take. I will keep with me. Now this expert also will say, sir, like you, I am also subjected to my own standards where my regulatory authority will test how I am working, how I am performing. If at all my regulatory authority come and ask me working papers of your engagement, what should I do? That time you come to me, I'll give you that time. So I can have a written agreement like this. Are you getting it? Okay, fine. You recruited expert, you delegated him the work. He started the work and completed the work. He started and completed the work. Now what you should do once he completed the work, like once he started and executing and completing the work, like he started the work. Whatever work for which we called him, he started. He's executing it. What should I check here? The auditor shall evaluate adequacy of the auditor's expert work for the auditor's purpose. My purpose of audit I know. What exactly I want from him also I know. Now what he worked on really I know that. Whether whatever he worked on, whatever he worked, whatever report he gave, is it useful for my audit? I need to check. What you will check exactly here? Like how do you check this? I will check. I will talk to him first of all what he's doing. I will review his working papers and reports. I will see what workings he's taking, what resources he's using, what data he is capturing, and collaborative procedures. Like I will do this, observing how he is working, confirming matters with the third parties. I will not blindly go with him. I will also go for second opinion. And performing detailed analytical processes to see whether principles of materiality is considered. Reperforming whatever some calculations he has, some Excel reports and all is there. Some calculations are there. I will just 1 second recalculate whether they are right or not. Discussion with another expert with relevant expertise when findings or conclusions of audit expert not consistent with other audit evidence. Suppose he gave an opinion that is contradicting the financial statements. That is contradicting financials. In books of accounts, the supporting evidences, whatever we found until date, that is different from whatever the report conclusion he is giving. In that case, what I will do, which one I will follow? I will take third party. I will take a second opinion. Generally, if a doctor tells us something, surgery has to be done, do we blindly go? No, we go for another doctor for second opinion. Exactly. And discussion with other auditors, discussion of audit, discussing the auditor's expert report with management. Finally, once I conclude all this, I will discuss with management, sir, this is what expert told. Your valuation has to be changed. This value is not correct. If auditor's expert works involves use of assumptions and methods, you should also check how reasonable these assumptions are. For example, diamonds valuation, it depends upon the sale duration period. Like some diamonds can be sold quickly, some cannot be sold quickly. That is also one of the important factors for valuation of a diamond. That is also one of the important for valuation, slow moving diamonds, for example. So for them, the valuation principle is not same for fast moving diamonds. Fast moving goods, the valuation is slightly different. The principles and assumptions are slightly different. For slow moving, the principles and assumptions are slightly different. So suppose if at all no, the expert have chosen some assumption for slow moving diamonds, which is of same like fast moving diamonds. So I need to see whether the reasonable assumption has been taken or not. If that expert involves use of source data, some data is using. Relevance of the data, which data he is using? Completeness of the data, is he getting complete data? Accuracy of that source data. So suppose no, like generally we get this entire data, market data, all that from various websites were there. Various websites for diamonds were there, but none of them are regulated properly. But different zones, different websites, different associations published diamonds prices. So from where he is getting the data? Is it from a genuine, authentic website, which is having huge, like what, acceptance? If that is the case, fine, I agree with his workings. Are you getting it? Next. Suppose after checking all this, you felt the auditor's expert work is not adequate. You felt no, still I'm not getting proper satisfaction because the assumptions he took is something wrong, or the source data he took is something wrong, or the way he is working on is something wrong. I'm not satisfied. I felt his work is not adequate. One option I have is change expert. Suppose here it's not about the expert work structure or work culture that is affecting. The system itself is like that. Somewhere I feel he is not getting proper evidence and guidance from the client. There is a limitation on scope of the expert, which means it's a limitation on obtaining audit evidence, which means I should give which opinion? Qualified or disclaimer of opinion, depending upon the seniority. If auditor determines that the work of auditor expert is not adequate, the auditor shall agree, means nothing but discuss with the expert. Perform extra work to be performed. Tell him that please perform so and so extra work. Okay, take 10 more days and give me. Or perform further audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstance. Like he worked something, right? Based on that, see whether you can perform additional work, balance work. Suppose if you concluded no evidence, if auditor cannot resolve the matter through additional audit procedures, which may involve further work being performed by expert, further work being performed by auditor, even after performing further work by expert and auditor, still you are not getting evidence. Or including engaging another expert, means we try to appoint some other expert also. Ultimately, after doing all the combinations possible, it may be necessary to express a modified opinion because I'm unable to get a proper conclusion. I'm unable to get conclusion even after performing additional work by me, by expert. Even I called another expert. None of us could able to resolve this matter, which means there is a limitation on the evidence. There is a limitation on information. I should give which opinion? Modified opinion. So since auditor has not obtained sufficient and appropriate, which modified opinion? Qualified opinion or disclaimer of opinion. Correct? Suppose you used expert work. It is not that expert work is not, it is not that expert's work is not adequate. Expert work is adequate. Expert work is adequate. Or else I'll do one thing. We'll continue in the next session. Better. Because this is also tricky. So I need to cover this and then I will summarize once again. Okay, then we will start 710 standard. That's it. Okay, we'll continue in the next session. Yeah, let's continue. So the final part of the 620. How to report in the ultimate audit report after using auditor's expert work. The standard is what? Using the work of an auditor's expert. After using the work, do you have to report that in the auditor's report? This is a question. Do you have to report that in the auditor's report? Suppose no. See, the primary reason why I went to why I went to auditor's expert is because management has done some valuation of some closing stock with regard to which I am having certain doubts. And if I want to sit and value, I don't have that professional competence. So I felt a need of an expert. And since I don't know much about experts, all that, I went for an external expert, all that. We recruited him. We entered into agreement with him. Terms and conditions discussed. He started the work, executed, complete final report he gave. The value that is recommended by expert is close to management valuation. Just 5 to 10% variation is there. When we go for further discussion, 5 to 10% deviation is common based on the assumptions. If the difference is more than 30-40% between expert this one, then that is something different. That is exception. But 5 to 10% deviation in that industry is quite acceptable between two experts. So if at all expert conclusion is aligning with management's conclusion and reporting, which means what I will conclude, yes, financial statements are true and fair. Obviously, which opinion I should give? Unmodified opinion. Now, I'm giving unmodified opinion in the basis for opinion para. Basis for opinion para. Is there any necessity for me to refer about expert, or is there any necessity for me to refer about in other matter paragraph about the expert? No need. Why do you refer? See, your objective is to get evidence and get a conclusion and report whether the financials are true and fair or not. Unnecessarily, how you worked in it, why to tell? Suppose you want to talk about expert. Okay, do one thing, key audit matter, you discuss about this. We have seen in one of the places, here expert's assistance is taken with respect to some litigations and all. In Vodafone case, we have seen in that. So in key audit matter, you tell, so and so valuation became complex for us, so we selected as a key audit matter. How you valued, how you concluded that the valuation is genuine? So you can explain what procedures you did, like you took an expert assistance, all that. Name and all, no need to refer. Expert name, do I need to refer? No need. However, suppose, look at this scenario. Suppose expert gave a value that is completely different from what management has adopted. Management valued and expert valuation, the difference is close to 50%. There is a huge variation. And the profit of the company will impact for sure if at all the management revises the value with the expert. And we asked management, dear management, your expert is not that independent and competent, so we don't believe him. This expert is a very credible organization is coming from, so this report is something which is trustworthy. You have to please revise your valuation as per this experts, auditor's expert report. Management denied. No sir, we don't follow. We follow our own expert. That is, we have our own reasons why we follow all this. So we don't want to follow your expert opinion. Then according to me, based on my information, explanation, understanding I have, I feel financial statements are materially misstated. Whether it is pervasive or not, forget about it. I will give a modified opinion. Remember, generally they'll have this doubt. Sir, what will happen if you give an adverse opinion? Nothing will happen. Board of directors will give explanation why they chosen that course of action in the board report. They will simply say, we have these reasons why we followed this method, and auditors are not agreeing to it. What we will do? That is the reason why auditors gave adverse opinion. Remember, it's an opinion only. It's not a fact. Auditors, what we are giving is only an opinion. We are not giving any fact or conclusion. It's just an opinion. If some other auditor comes, there is no guarantee that he will also give the same opinion. If he himself do once again audit from scratch, there is no guarantee that you will give the same opinion again. Because every time you select a sample, the sample will vary. Every time you once again you start the process, you execute a different way. So at the end of the day, board of directors can happily defend, even though you give adverse opinion, even though you give qualified opinion, they can happily defend themselves because it's an opinion. That's it. So if at all you feel based on the expert as report, financial statements are materially misstated, you give what opinion? Modified opinion. Now in the basis for qualified or basis for adverse opinion section, you need to tell about the reason why you modified, right? In order to convey the reason properly, expert name can be used. Expert name in the sense you can tell that based on the expert's report of bracket so and so firm, this is a valuation is what arrived, which according to the information and explanation and based on the evidence we have is adequate, proper valuation, which management did not agree to it and corrected the financials. Therefore, we qualified the financials. You can explain the reason. Now, just because you are referring about expert name in the opinion section, basis for opinion section, does your responsibility for audit reduces? Or does the responsibility shift to him? No. Ultimate responsibility will be yours only. That fact also you should mention. However, our responsibility will not be reduced by referring his name. You should mention that point. Our responsibility will not be reduced in this regard. You should clearly mention that also. So let's read. If the auditor may refer to the work of an audit expert in auditor's report, the auditor may refer to work of an auditor's expert in audit report because such a reference is relevant to an understanding of nature of modification. Why you give a modified opinion? To make people understand you are referring the expert. Further, the report shall indicate, the auditor shall indicate in the report that such a reference does not reduce auditor's responsibility for that opinion. Look, ultimately the opinion is my responsibility. One of the way to obtain sufficient appropriate evidence is through expert. That factual I'm telling you. I'm not saying based on expert opinion I gave this opinion, so he is responsible if something went wrong. No, I'm not saying. If something really went wrong, then the court of law will decide who did this wrong. Whether it's my negligence because of which the wrong ultimate conclusion happened, or is it because he fraudulently cheated me? If at all the answer is he, not me, I genuinely discharged my work, I have had enough documentation to prove that I'm not guilty, I will be relieved ultimately. Like some of you might have, sir, what if expert cheated you? Nothing will happen if I can defend myself that I'm not guilty. Getting it? Like I'm not liable for this guilty or action. Everywhere, remember, we have a reasonable assurance protection clause. If you are able to show documentation that you did proper adequate care, skill and diligence, nobody can touch you. Okay. Next, now NFRA, you see, I'll show you NFRA. Wi-Fi working illa theriyadhe? Not working. NFRA, I'll just show you. You'll get an idea how, what kind of these things we have. Like NFRA is very aggressive now. That's why we don't like them. Yes, this is NFRA. We will have NFRA orders. Most of the NFRA orders on chartered accountants only. Latest order is on 5th July. This CA Yogesh Mahipal. With respect to order in the matter of Vikas Propant Granite Limited. Okay, we'll see that order. What punishment they gave at the last, it will be there. Imposition of monetary penalty 2 lakhs. Debarment of CA Yogesh for 2 years from being appointed as auditor or internal auditor, or from undertaking any audit in respect of financials or internal audit of any activity of a company or body corporate. So firms under they can do. The order will be effective after 30 days of this issue. So like here in the conclusion they'll give you. You see, it is the duty of the auditor to conduct the audit with skepticism and due diligence and report his opinion in an unbiased manner. Statutory audits provide useful information to stakeholders. Like the engagement partner is in the present case was required to ensure compliance with the standards on auditing to achieve necessary audit quality and lend credibility for the financials. And as we have explained in this order, deficiency in the conduct of audit, abdication of responsibility and inappropriate conclusions without evidence, he was punished. So he was punished on what part? He didn't discharge his duty as per standard. Means he didn't obtain proper evidence. That's why Big Four entities work so keen on documentation. They want documentation for everything. Why? To defend. Suppose you don't have a documentation, this is the problem. And they explain entire consequences, penalty, all that. 2 years COP cancelled and 2 lakhs penalty. Maybe this is a very less severe. So you can find so many cases you see here. So many cases you will find here. Almost every month NFRA is at least punishing 3 to 4 CS, 2 to 3 CS. So June month 2 orders were there, May 1 order is there, April you see so many were there, April month. Why April month where so many were there? If May month NFRA comes, no sir, we are doing audit, come after 2 months. That's why they'll reply. Getting it? But generally it won't be like they have to assist NFRA for sure. NFRA is a government body, remember. The issue happened with NFRA like when NFRA, when the suddenly, like earlier we have something called quality review board. Most of our audits, quality review, how qualitatively we are conducting audit. Are we complying with standards? Are we complying with quality control practices? Entire this is reviewed by quality review board earlier until 2019. Until 2019, they're reviewed by quality review board completely. But with effect from 1st April 2019, listed entities, banks, insurance companies, and their subsidiaries. For all these entities, the quality review must be conducted by NFRA, not quality review board, which institute opposed like anything. Why? Quality review board is not ICI body. quality review board is not an ICA body. It's an independent body constituted by central government. But in that quality review board, 11 members will be there. Ultimate managing committee. 5 members are ICA council members. 50% of the quality review board is controlled by us. So indirectly, if a member is being scrutinized by quality review board, if at all member feels any difficulty, he can consult these council members and somehow get resolved. Because our fraternity understand the problems faced by us. Correct? But in NFRA, out of 11 council NFRA top management, only 1 is from ICA. Remaining 10 are from different departments of government. How do they understand our pain? How do they understand our limitations? So it is impossible for us to sit and explain them. Every time whenever a scrutiny went on, we can't explain them because the person coming for audit quality review from NFRA is not a chartered accountant. Whereas from quality review board, the person who is doing technical review, we call him as technical review, he is a chartered accountant. Only CA can understand how a CA works. Others cannot understand. On this logic, we continuously opposed NFRA, but we subsequently failed. Now NFRA, actually this is correct. It's an independent authority. If a CA is verifying, where is independence? So somebody should verify who is sitting outside. Only he will understand whether you got sufficient appropriate evidence. That's why many places in our audit, independent third party test should be conducted, they say. They say independent third party test you should conduct. We will discuss once we start remaining chapters. Remaining standards will discuss. Suppose, now tell me, suppose you give unmodified opinion even after using expert's report. Do you have to refer anything about expert? No need. If the auditor shall not refer, remember it's compulsory, you should not refer. Because why to refer? Anyhow, it is an unmodified opinion. Why you should refer expert name and all? The auditor shall not refer to the work of an expert in an audit report containing unmodified opinion unless required by law or regulation. In India, there is no such law which says expert assistance, if at all you take, you have to report. No, such law is not there. If such reference is required by the law, okay, in that case you refer about him. Just because you referred about him doesn't mean your responsibility reduces. That also should refer. The moment in the audit report you refer about expert, immediately you should say such reference does not reduce my responsibility. So if at all such a reference is required by law or regulation, the auditor shall indicate in the audit report that the reference does not reduce auditor's responsibility for the audit opinion. Clear? That's it. 620 is over. So lengthy. Every question, every paragraph in the standard is there in the past examination. If you ask me any important questions within this, it's impossible for me. Read entire this. If you want, I'll tell you some chapters to leave. I told right. Follow that method only. Don't leave between a chapter. Yes. So what we learned in essay 620 is who is an expert, when we call him as an auditor expert, when we call him as a management expert. Auditor experts are 2 types, internal expert, external expert. Internal means within the firm or within the network firms, if at all expert is coming and helping, that's called internal expert. Otherwise it's called as external expert. And when we need an expert, first of all, what is the need of an audit expert? There they explain first where we need an expert. Where we need an expert. So first of all, when we need an expert, they answered. Then like where you need an expert, like where means understanding the business, getting evidences, yes or no, evaluating risk, designing response to the risk, performing further audit procedure, evaluating evidence. All these cases I need expert. When I will need an expert, when I am not having any formal understanding of the business, when I don't have anybody to discuss about the business of the entity or any peculiarities, when I don't have any other auditor, when I don't have experience in auditing these entities, when all these cases the answer is no, I need an expert. When I need an auditor's expert, specifically when I will go for my own expert. Suppose if already company has appointed management expert and his nature, scope and objective I will see, and he is independent from the entity or not I will see, he is controlled by the entity or not I will see, he is competent, capable or not I will see, whether he is also liable for professional standards like me I will check. If all these cases answer is yes, positive, I will not go for auditor's expert. I will happily choose management expert report and go with further evaluation. And not only that, significance of the matter, risk involved, what kind of procedures that are required in this matter, all that I will keep in mind and decide whether should I go for a separate auditor's expert or not. Then suppose once I decided to go for an auditor's expert, which auditor's expert? It depends upon, like remember, your audit procedures are influenced by experts' work. Remember that fact. The moment you are going for outside expert, the moment you are going for auditor's expert, remember that your work is going to be affected by his work. How it is going to be affected, why it is going to be affected? Because of the nature of the matter, because of the risk involved, because of the significance involved, and do you have any prior experience with that fellow? All these are important. Is the expert belongs to your internal audit firm? If so, it will be very easy. Your audit process will not be much impacted. But in some cases, more extensive procedures you would require. You need to perform more extensive research on the expert work, all that. When, if the expert is outsider, not subject to firm quality control, if you don't have any prior work experience with him, you don't have any prior work experience with him, and the work whatever he is performing is integral to audit, and it is related to a significant matter, in all these cases you have to perform additional work on the expert's work. Okay, once you understood the nature of auditor expert, then you need to check competence, objectivity, all that, especially this competence, all that, where you need to check in case of external expert. See whether external expert is having any interest and relationships with the entity. Inquire him. Not only him, inquire the client also, whether do they have any relationship with the expert. Cross examination you have to do. And if any relationship exists, see whether any safeguards are there. Are they acceptable? What kind of relation, financial, business, personal, and any services that are already being provided by expert to the client. And get a representation that all the relationships and threats to independence are shown to you before he accepting the work. Then see whether the expert is also subject to outside performance technical standards, performance standard. Whether whatever the expert you recruited, no, you recruited him for a particular assertion purpose, whether in that matter he is expert, that also you should check. After checking all this, you will recruit him. Now while recruiting, what you will do, you will enter into agreement. What you will explain in the agreement, you will explain what is his work, what is where he has to work, objectives of his work, and what are roles and responsibilities, how you have to communicate with each other, and what kind of report, format of report that expert has to give ultimately at the end of the expert's work, and he need to maintain confidentiality, all this. Then okay, fine, you entered into agreement, you delegated the work and he started doing the work or completed the work, whatever. How do you check whether the work is adequate? How do you check whether the work is adequate? So, you know, the relevance and reasonableness of that expert findings or conclusions. So you need to check what conclusions he reached, what conclusions, what decisions he took, all that. And in that area, you also have some other evidence. Check whether his conclusions are matching with other conclusions, other evidences that we have. So observe how he is working, inquire with him what he is working on, review his working papers, observe how he is working, confirm with third parties, look analytical, logically also you evaluate. Analytical procedure is nothing but do logically, think logically, reperform the calculations, discuss with another expert. If at all the expert gave some different conclusions from the financial statements, different conclusions from the other evidence that we have. So evidence, remember, evidence means information. Evidence means what? Information. So whatever expert report, whatever expert conclusions are not matching with other information we have, so you need to take another expert help. You need to take another expert help. So discuss his report ultimately with the management. Suppose if experts work involve significant assumptions, see how far these assumptions are reasonable. And obviously expert is using some data when he is giving any opinion or conclusion, whatever it is. What is the source data? Is it complete, accurate, relevance, from where he is getting the data? So that also you should check. Suppose you feel expert work is not adequate, what you will do? Discuss with the expert whether any other additional work has to be performed. You also try to perform additional work and try to resolve the matter. Suppose if at all additional procedure cannot be performed by you or the expert, or you are unable to appoint another expert, ultimately you are unable to get evidence, you will give which opinion? Modified opinion. And ultimately, how do you report about expert in the auditor's report? Because of expert report, if you are giving modified opinion, to explain the people why you modified the opinion, you can refer the expert's work in the auditor's report and mention that such a reference will not reduce your responsibility. If it is unmodified opinion, no need to refer unless mandatory under law. If at all it is mandatory under law and referring expert's report in the auditor's report, say that such reference does not reduce your responsibility. Over. Clear? Now in exam, they'll ask you, what auditor has to respond when the work of expert is not adequate? 4 marks. Entire this matter you have to write. No excuse. When expert work is not adequate for the purpose of audit, audit's expert work, what auditor has to respond? This is 4 marks question. Then write about evaluating adequacy of expert's work. Write about evaluating adequacy. Like expert already worked, right? How do you check his working? How do you know what he did is correct or not? How do you check it? What I will check, first I will ask him how he worked on. Then I will review his working papers. Then I will do some additional procedures like observing, confirming with third parties, analytical, re-performance. Only 4 points enough. Getting it? And then suppose if at all assumptions are used by him, how far these assumptions are reasonable. Suppose if he has used some source data, how far the source data is reliable and accurate. That's it. See how simply I summarized it. Once you felt complex first, second I explained, third I simplified it. Clear? Suppose if you read in the simplest language from the beginning itself, no, you will not get this understanding. First real picture, then simplified picture. That is how you can master understanding. Clear all of you? Next, in exam, no, so they'll give you a case. They'll give you a case study like so and so. All that issue, expert is required. All that auditor has to agree certain terms with expert. On what matters auditor has to agree with expert? What are the matters on which auditor has to agree with expert? 4 marks question. These 4 points you have to write. Nature, scope and objective of the expert, roles and responsibilities, timing of communication, nature and timing and extent of communications required, and confidentiality, observation for confidentiality. That's it. Easy. Then, how do auditor evaluate competence, capability and objectivity of external expert? They will ask. So we will ask first point what? First point, in case of auditor external expert, the evaluation of objectivity shall include, actually you can write it as a first point, A point, that one. From here to here, A point you can write it as. Okay. And further evaluations what you can make? Inquiring the entity. First inquire the expert, do he know anybody in the organization? Second, inquire the company, does they know this expert? And see whether any safeguards are there. If at all relationships exist, safeguards are there. See whether these safeguards are reducing the threats or not. And if it is related to whether is the expert is liable for performance standards, regulatory authority standards, all that check out. Whether the expert is competent in the matter for which we are seeking opinion. And remember, evaluation of expert competence is a continuous process. You know, in exam they'll give you a question like this. This sentence they'll give you. Evaluation of experts' competence and capability is a continuous process. Give few examples of what auditor considers in this process. Give few examples of what auditor will consider in this evaluations. They'll give you this last line as a question. Earlier, no, we have true or false questions in CA Inter. Of course, in CA Inter we don't have the standard 610, 620. All these are not there in CA Inter. Getting it? 600. All this is not there. They'll true or false statement based MCQ they'll design. Evaluation of experts' competence is not a continuous process. Option A. Option B. Evaluation of experts' competence is a continuous process, keeping in mind unexpected events and changes in conditions. Like this, they'll give 4 combinations. Unless you observe this, you can't pick there. Remember, by listening to these classes, I'm telling you, you can master MCQs. You need not read again later. With respect to MCQs, I can give you 100% assurance if you listen to the classes properly. Just listening to the classes, understanding the content, that's enough for MCQs. You need not, because by listening to the classes, you can get the skill of, identifying. You will identify which is right, which is wrong. You can identify that. Recognition skills you will get. But for descriptive, you need to remember also. So you should also do a parallel work along with me. Are you getting it? So that's it. 620 is completed. 620 is completed. Understood how is simply I summarized it? Now tell me, from this book, is it easy to revise or not? Day before exam. It's not book size, or it's not the letters, it's not the notes, short notes. Some students, they make short notes. Making short notes from the standards take 2 to 3 hours of time. And that 2 to 3 hours, if at all you read the standard, you can revise 5 times. Tell me, writing one short notes, don't say 1 time writing is equal to 10 times reading. It is not. It is not. Okay, it is not at all. So it's all about comprehending, like how you are comprehending the standard, how you are simplifying the standard, how as a whole you are able to understand. If you recollect essay 600 using the work of other auditor, what we understood in other auditor, if you recollect, then summarized it. No, we summarized it. So who is another auditor? We understood. What is a component? We understood. What is the principal auditor? We understood. And responsibility division point we understood. Acceptance as principal auditor we understood. Principal auditor procedure we understood. How coordination should be there between them we understood. And reporting. Correct? 610 also same. 610. The standard says there are 2 types in which the work of internal auditor can be used. Type 1, using the work performed by him. Type 2. What the standard says with respect to type 1? When we can use his work. When we are prohibited to use his work. If at all we are using his work, how to use his work, what points to evaluate. Getting it? Suppose if at all it is a direct assistance, what is direct assistance? When we can take, when we are prohibited. Okay, you're taking direct assistance. Certain works you should not delegate. What are they? Once you go for direct assistance, formality, agreements you should enter into. And finally, documentation related to direct assistance. That's it. You see how I remembered? It's not that I studied yesterday and then came and tell you this. Because I explained to you, I comprehended it very well. So I remember it. After 1 month, if you ask me, I'll forget again. Exactly, gist of the standard I remember as a whole. But I cannot write exam. In order to write exam, the day before 1.5 day intense revision is required. That without intense revision, no matter even if I scored 90 in audit, after 1 year I'll not score 20 also. That intense revision is what ultimately matters day before exam, if that is possible, or at least before exams starts, some 2 to 3 days of intense revision if you're able to do, definitely you can crack. Don't think about short notes, chart books, nothing. When you're reading, you should be able to understand what you're reading. If you're not reading just words only, you're plainly reading, like no processing happening in mind. There is no point of reading that. When you're reading, processing also should happen in the mind. Okay, what you're reading, why am I reading, what is this context of reading? That processing is what important ultimately for you to remember. Yeah, that's it. So 620 is over. So then we have a 710, which is just a small standard. Okay, I'll tell at least a major part of the standard. I'll tell in the next session. What I will do is in the 710 we will finish it off.